Hello everyone and welcome back to our channel. Today's session will be divided into two parts where we will talk about private international law, its functions and nature in first part, whereas we will enlist difference between private and public international law in second part. Without any further delay, let's move on to the first part. Private international law, which is also known as conflict of law, is the body of legal rules and principles that govern disputes involving a foreign element. It deals with cases that involve legal issues with a cross-border or international dimension, such as disputes over property, contracts, family matters, or torts, where the parties involved are from different countries or where the legal issues arise in different jurisdictions. The primary purpose of private international law is to provide rules for determining which country's laws should apply to a particular legal dispute and which courts have jurisdiction to hear the case. Private international law seeks to ensure that justice is done in a fair and predictable manner, despite the complexities that arise when legal systems from different countries or jurisdictions collide. Now, moving on to the functions of private international law, the primary function is to provide a framework for resolving disputes involving foreign elements. Here are some of the key functions of private international law. First, determining the applicable law. When legal disputes involve parties or events that have connections to multiple jurisdictions, private international law helps to determine which laws should apply to the case. This helps to ensure that the outcome of the dispute is fair and consistent with the applicable legal rules. Second, resolving conflicts of jurisdiction. Private international law helps to determine which courts have jurisdiction to hear a particular case. This is important when the parties involved are from different countries or where the legal issues arise in different jurisdictions. Third, enforcing foreign judgments. Private international law provides a framework for recognizing and enforcing judgments from foreign courts. This helps to ensure that judgments issued in one country are recognized and enforced in other countries, which can facilitate cross-border transactions and promote international legal cooperation. Fourth, facilitating international trade and commerce. Private international law helps to reduce legal uncertainty and promote legal harmonization across different jurisdictions. This can help to facilitate cross-border transactions, promote international trade and investment, and support economic growth. Overall, private international law plays a critical role in facilitating cross-border legal relationships and promoting international legal cooperation. Here we are done with the first part where we talk about the concept of private international law, its functions and its nature. Now moving on to the second part, we will enlist the differences. Public international law and private international law are two distinct branches of international law that deal with different legal issues and have different objectives. Here are the main differences between them. First, public international law governs relations between states and international organizations, whereas private international law governs disputes between private individuals and entities with a foreign element. Public international law deals with issues such as human rights, international trade, and the law of war, whereas private international law deals with issues such as jurisdiction, choice of law, and the recognition and enforcement of foreign judgments. Public international law emphasizes the protection of the common interest of the international community, whereas private international law emphasizes the protection of the rights and interests of private parties involved in cross-border transactions. Fourth, public international law is primarily based on treaties, customary international law, and general principles of law, whereas private international law is mainly based on domestic laws, international conventions, and the rules of judicial committee. Public international law is enforced through diplomatic and political measures such as sanctions, mediation, and arbitration, whereas private international law is enforced through the recognition and enforcement of foreign judgments and the cooperation of domestic courts. Public international law is regulated by international courts and tribunals such as the International Court of Justice and the International Criminal Court, whereas private international law is regulated by domestic courts and tribunals in its jurisdictions. Hence, these were the primary differences between public and private international law. I hope you enjoyed the session. Thank you for watching and happy learning.